I am Brian Steffen. I'm the chair of the Communication and Media Studies program at Simpson. And this project is really the culmination of a senior capstone project in multimedia journalism for our 4 graduating seniors in multimedia journalism, who I'm going to introduce to you in just a second. What we're going to be talking about is really the findings of a project that the students have been working on since the term began in January, in conjunction with Iowa Watch, which is an Iowa City-based nonprofit website, the Iowa Center for Investigative Journalism. I was going to get that.
Iowa Center for Public Affairs.
Close enough. Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism. And I'm going to ask my friend and colleague Lyle Muller, who's come over with his staff member Lauren Mills today from Iowa City to see the presentation. Essentially what the students have been doing is working on something we agreed is something that should be done, and we worked it out with Lyle and Lauren and their help. We took a day and drove over to Iowa City. Lyle and Lauren came over, this is either their 3rd or 4th trip over here during the course of the semester, so I figure that they should be paying taxes in Warren County by now. But the project came about partly because of the experience a number of us have had with international higher education. And in one case, one of our group is going on her first study abroad the day after she graduates, Katie Buckholz. So I'm going to introduce them. They're going to talk about some of their findings. It's designed to be a conversation. There will be a question period. My colleague Kristen Bain in the back will have a microphone so we can all hear each other. This is designed to be an open exchange of ideas based around the findings of our student journalists. And before we get started, however, I'd like to call on Lyle Muller of Iowa Watch and formerly of the Cedar Rapids Gazette, who's just been great. He and Lauren have been coming over and Skyping with us once a week and working on these projects. And I think they really gave our students a great taste of what it is professional journalists do on a day in and day out basis. Lyle, if you'd like to come up and say a few words about Iowa Watch, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all for coming to hear the work that these guys have done. It's quite remarkable. The Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism is a 4-year-old nonprofit news organization founded in in Iowa City by a professor at the University of Iowa School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Steve Berry, and also a person who was a doctoral student at that time, Ted Gucci. They formed this organization because they would get these papers from college students and give them A's or even A+, and then lament the fact that no one would read those stories. They developed Iowa Watch as a place where stories could be published. And so Iowa Watch does collaborative journalism now, investigative and public affairs journalism, using mostly students, but also Lauren, who is a paid staffer. We do this in collaboration with other news media in the state, and so our partners include the Des Moines Register, the Cedar Rapids Gazette, Quad City Times, Sioux City Journal. Those are the largest papers in the state. Also, some television stations are starting to run our stories as well. We are launching now a statewide radio program where we will feature our journalism in now 11 radio stations, but we are working on more. It's important work, we believe, because this investigative journalism still is sought by readers, it's still sought by citizens, and it also makes us a more vibrant democracy. Besides the journalism, though, we also work with college students. Another facet of the Iowa Watch effort is education. We work with college students to do high-level work at a level so high that it can be published anywhere in the world. The work is done in an ethical manner, fact-checked, intense editing, I believe, all of the students will say. But at the end, those stories get published. And in fact, our last couple of stories you could read in a Sunday Des Moines Register in 2 of the last 3 weeks. These guys took a topic that they brainstormed on their own, working with Lauren and me and Brian, and have been working all semester. And they've taken our feedback and criticisms, they've responded to it, and I believe each of them would tell you that the work that they have done now for these stories is far more than where it was, say, in February or March or their first drafts. I'm really proud to have worked with them. I'm proud to know them, and I think they're going to give you a lot of good information, news you can use. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
We're just going to do the old-fashioned introduction, and just to my immediate right and on down, Kate Connor, who's a senior, graduates a week from Saturday, and actually just showed me a few minutes ago how she's tricked out her graduation mortarboard. So, and she's from LaVilla, Iowa. We have Rachel Peterson, I couldn't see, Cascade there for a second. Rachel Peterson, who's from Packwood, Iowa, via Australia and Boulder, Colorado, and she is a senior. And I might add, she's that rarest of journalism students. She has a job. So when she's done with us. So Erin Gurken, who's a senior and graduates a week from Saturday. She's from Cedar Rapids, and I've known Erin since her freshman year when she was in a beginning news writing class for me. And Erin was also in a group of students who were with me in the fall term in London. So she learned a lot about international education through that. And finally, down at the end, Katie Buckles, who I think was in that same beginning news writing class with Erin in 1947, and it seemed like it. And Katie's from Weldon, Iowa, the pride of Weldon. So, and she's, as we said, she's going to Peru a week from Sunday, so to get a taste of what life is like there. So, what we asked them to do is they're going to speak for a few minutes about the findings of their reporting and their journalism. We're going to have some questions, if from no one else, from the moderator who promised he would put them to the test. And then see what other questions we have. I might add that we have a number of people here. We have faculty, colleagues, we have people from the community, we have friends and family supporting the students. We have some international students here as well, and some domestic students as well. So it's really what I'd hope we'd have today, a good conversation with a number of different constituencies on the issue of international higher education. So I can't remember, we actually met for class this morning in this room so they could kind of get a sense of, and I can't remember, did we decide who was going first today? Or I think we decided that someone wasn't going first, because she has to go first on another panel tomorrow. But who wants to lead us off? It's that awkward moment.
I'll go.
Okay, it's Kate. Thanks, Kate.
Hello. Okay, so my particular task in the story that we had chosen was the unexpected cost of studying abroad. Before, when students go and study wherever they choose to study, they are given a packet and they kind of give an overview of what they are expected to pay for. This will include your tuition at your guest school, your flight over there, and just kind of a rough outdraft of the expenses that you're going to find while you're studying abroad. But after interviewing 7 students, I found out that things in life, as well, a lot of things in life come very unexpectedly, especially when you're a student studying overseas. So there are 2 kind of categories within the unexpected cost. There's the money cost, and then there's also personal cost. So the money cost is basically what's going to cause you financial hardship. And one of the stories that I interviewed was there's a student that's over in Poland currently, and she wasn't aware that she had to go through this application process to become a teacher's assistant so that she can get her $530 stipend monthly. She planned around that stipend, and a month came and she didn't get her stipend. So fortunately, everything was resolved. She was able to fill out the proper application, but the school and, Simpson wasn't aware that the application process had changed. And another thing that students haven't found is that budgeting for your trip, especially when you're over there, is a big thing, and it's very key because once your money runs out, you either have to contact your parents or you just don't have any money. So and extra money for traveling, because when you're over in Europe, you're going to want to go and see things, or over in another country, and you have all these opportunities to go and experience the culture. But unfortunately, a lot of those things do cost money, and students really weren't aware of how much money that they were going to be spending. On the other hand, there's also personal cost, which I found particularly interesting. In going into this project, I had no idea of what I was going to find. And one of them was from Brandon Hebert, who is a Simpson alum, and he went over to London his junior year, and he thought he had all of these friends going with him on the trip, but when he went there, he ended up spending most of that trip alone. And he remembered one day breaking down into tears because he was so alone, and he was so frustrated and wondering if this experience was really worth it. Why did he put himself through this psychiatric harm to go and study abroad? But then after kind of going through and talking with his group and getting counseling from the advisor over there at that time, he ended up discovering that he had become a lot stronger through the process. And just, being away during the holidays from your family and from your friends, it's definitely something that students don't take into perspective. You're over there to see a new culture and to see, taste, and feel new things, but when the holidays come around, it hits really close to home. But through all of my interviews, the outcome is all the same. They all say that they wouldn't trade the experience and that they have become stronger people from everything.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon. My piece of the puzzle of the story was talking about the importance of studying abroad in a global economy. So bear with me, I'm just going to throw some facts and figures out at you first of all. So in 2014, 1.8 million students will be graduating with a bachelor's degree. So 1.8 million people will be looking for jobs. At the same time, Iowa ranks 6th in the nation for student debt. So that means the average student debt is $29,000 for each person. I think it's graduating seniors. That really freaks us out. And the last number I'm going to throw out at you is that Iowa did $13.9 billion of exporting. So all of this kind of totals together as lots of students are graduating, they have a high amount of debt, and they're all looking for jobs in Iowa. But at the same time, businesses are conducting a lot of business in the global economy. So what I looked at is how important it is to have international experience when you're looking for that first job, and if it gives you a leg up. So I interviewed Rolfe, who is a senior at Simpson. He studied abroad in London with Aaron and Brian this past fall. And so he found that when he was studying abroad in London, he just thought he was having these really great experiences. He told this story about the first time he was by himself in Chinatown at night, and he found his way back to the uni on the tube by himself, and he just remembers like the moment that it clicked where he was like, wow, I can do this on my own. And so when he came back and he was kind of discussing the skills he had learned, and he started in on his resume looking for jobs, he found that he had picked up all these skills in London. And so some of these that he talked about are adapting to change, independence, respect of other people that aren't like you, and not giving up on challenging things. Obviously, studying abroad is a pretty difficult transition, and he compared it to going from college into the job force. It's two different environments. You're kind of out on your own. You can't call up mom and dad in the night and say that your car broke down. You're on your own. And so he just really found that these skills were applicable into going into the workforce. So I also interviewed some head human resource people from Kemin Industries and Pioneer based in Des Moines. And both of these companies conduct a lot of international business. They conduct business in over 90 countries. And they also said that when they see international experience on a person's resume, automatically they know that they have an expanded mind, they have the ability to adapt, they can ask questions, and they can communicate with others who are not necessarily from the same background as them, and they can collaborate. And so it does kind of give them a leg up on people who have maybe just stayed domestically. And one thing that I found interesting, and I think this is across all industries is that they were saying that they're also importing people from other countries. It's not just people from the US going and working or studying, it's people from other countries coming to the US. And so Kemen said, you just have to walk into our labs across the street and you'll find people from 20 different countries working, where you need to have a knowledge of, you know, how to say hello to them or be respectful of their cultural practices. So no matter what position you're in, you really need to be aware of that. The other thing that I noticed was that it also helps you climb the corporate ladder. Not only can you kind of get that first job with the skills you've learned, but if you're willing to travel abroad or you've had that experience, a lot of companies are putting an emphasis on having expat assignments. This is where you relocate to a different country for 1 or 2 years and work for the company. And if you've already had that experience, they're really going to notice you and be more willing to invest money in you to send you abroad. I also just found that companies are placing the emphasis on respect of different cultures. Pioneer, they have language programs. They're encouraging all of their employees, whether it's just the receptionist or up to the president, they want them to take a second language. They also have cultural days, so they have people come in and talk about their culture, and they celebrate different holidays relating to different cultures. So I just found that internationalization in the workforce is a really important thing, and studying abroad, like Kate said, can be an expensive thing, but it's these little hidden things like getting a job that really make it pay off in the end. And that's my piece of the puzzle.
My part of this story was about international students coming to Iowa. So slightly different from what they're doing, but still all related. First of all, I wanted to look at Simpson because I see international students here at Simpson. I know Connie a little bit because we're in London together. I've known Leah since freshman year, and so I got to talk to Leah about it, so that was really interesting. But one thing I've always noticed with international students is we're missing out on each other. It's not just that international students aren't necessarily making as many friends with the American students, it's also that American students aren't connecting to international students. That's something I see here on campus, and I know that I've been guilty of. And so I wanted to look at other Iowa private colleges. International students aren't the biggest part of Iowa private colleges, but they're still a noteworthy piece of the puzzle here at Iowa private colleges, as Rachel said. So like Rachel did, I want to start off with a few facts. Iowa ranked, in 2013 at least, Iowa ranked 21st in the country with the number of international students. It's over 11,500 at that point in time. Most of these, of course, are at the University of Iowa and Iowa State and UNI. But throughout Iowa private colleges, the numbers can range from in the teens to almost 200 at Grinnell when I talked to them. And so I just thought that was really interesting to see how the international student numbers vary, but at the same time, even when there aren't necessarily as many like here at Simpson as there would be at Grinnell, they still have a noteworthy presence. I got to talk to a couple different international student coordinators at different colleges throughout the state, and I think a lot of schools do things really well, and Simpson included, of course, but there are many things that schools can improve on as well to bring these students kind of more into not only the Iowa college culture, but Iowa culture in general and American culture in general. One thing that a lot of the schools do is they partner with host families. That's a great way to involve the community in these international students. I think every school I talk to does this host family program. It's a great way to really connect these students with like holidays, for instance. If they're here in the fall, they'll have somewhere to go for Thanksgiving if they want. Another thing that I noticed a lot of colleges also do is they do international student trips. Whether it's to a camping trip, I know Co did a camping trip or a canoe trip, to trips to Chicago or New Orleans, as Simpson has done. And one thing that I know from these trips, as Leah had said, and the international student coordinator at Co that I talked to, they're really bonding trips. So they're really good for the international students to connect to each other. And I think that's a great opportunity. They make those connections and they're making connections with each other. But one thing I've noticed is that American students typically aren't either invited or involved in these trips. And I think that's definitely something that can be improved on. I wouldn't obviously want it all to be a ton of American students, but incorporating some American students who want to make these connections, I think, is a really great experience and something that many colleges are missing out on. One thing that I did find that a couple schools do better than Simpson. One thing, Co especially, they have a cultural show, which I think is a really interesting concept. They have it every fall. They invite not only the Co campus, but also the community. And it's, when I talked to the international student coordinator there, she made the comment that it's a way to have these students kind of give back to the community for, hey, thanks for having us here, here's what we can do. So I thought that was really interesting. Something that Co and Grinnell also do that I noticed is they have, Co, it's called the Co Diplomats. It's where when international students first arrive on campus, they have kind of like a big brother or big sister, which is either a former international student or an American student who just kind of brings them into the campus and shows them, hey, this is how this works, this is what's different, and just kind of introduces them to new people. So that's a great way to expand their friend groups and social experiences. Grinnell has one like it as well called Amigos, which it's rather than just a one-on-one, it's a small group, but very similar. And one thing also that I wanted to comment on is these experiences are really important in the freshman year. Freshman year is when you make those first social connections, when you really learn how to adjust to being here in the States if you're from abroad or vice versa. And so one thing that a lot of schools focus on is the the introductory courses. There we go. I know Grinnell and Co and Simpson all do that very well. They try to diversify these introductory courses and make sure that not all the international students are in the same course, because these international students, because they have that similar connection of being an international student, they're going to make that connection with each other anyways. So by giving these international students a group of people from America or Iowa specifically, it's a great way for them to form these connections outside the international student group. So that's kind of the gist of my story.
And I might add on that, I mean, I think one of the really important things that you get is just kind of the process of being around people who aren't like you, either on their turf or when they're on yours. And as a great example, I was just thinking of this while you were talking here, and I was watching CNN this morning. For some reason, I don't know why, all they seem to care about in the world is this plane that disappeared about 25 years ago now. But the thing that I found very interesting was they keep coming back and they're reporting to the secrecy and deceptiveness of the Malaysians. What they interpret as a secrecy and deceptiveness. Now, I don't think the Malaysians believe that they're being secretive or deceptive at all. We have certain, I guess, cultural biases that, especially in an American press tradition, that other democratic countries may not actually have, but the way it gets interpreted and then told is that the Malaysians are clearly corrupt. There's something rotten in, if not in Denmark, at least in Malaysia. And but it could be easily explained if people had a better understanding of how Malaysian culture. Now, I'm not an expert in Malaysian culture, so I can't explain why that is. But I think most American reporters have no idea how Malaysian culture actually works. One of the things is when you're around people of a different culture, sometimes a radically different culture, than you really learn. And it's not out of a book, and it's not out of a PowerPoint. It's simply by being around people. So I think that's good stuff.
Yeah, and I think, like what Rachel said, it's great to, it's a global economy, and so you can't not be able to work with people from different cultures. And so getting that experience in college and having an integrated student body where the international students are friends with just as many Americans as they are with international students, that's a great way for both sides to get that international experience. And one of my favorite quotes from the international student coordinator at Co is that the international students add the biggest spice ever. And so a lot of times Americans are missing out on that spice because we're not reaching out to each other as well as we could.
Okay, very Gurken.
So my part of this project was a little bit different. Each of them reported and they went out and interviewed, and then I kind of accompanied them and took video and photos, and yeah, that's what I did. So I was a multimedia person of this project, and it was a lot of fun. One thing I really learned from working with not just my peers, but with Iowa Watch, is collaboration. That's really what this whole project was. It was a big collaboration, working with each of our schedules, Skyping every week with Lyle and Lauren, so that was a lot of fun. And I remember one time me and Kate had to reschedule with a lady, so that was, just overall just that experience of collaborating with professionals and each other. So one thing I did also learn from working on the multimedia side of things was, as a multimedia journalist, I really learned that I can solve problems. If that's one thing I can gain from being a multimedia journalist, a major, is I can solve problems. I'm a problem solver. So I worked with a camera I didn't really know how to work with, so I figured out how to do it. So I thought that was really cool. And if I didn't know how to do it, I would ask Brian, but I never had to. I actually asked Lisa Carpinelli, so no offense. And let's see. And just so you know, this project is still ongoing. It's not finished. So we're still ongoing with it. I'm still working on my photos, my infographics, videos, and stuff. So I hope whenever this is finished, you guys will see all the work that all of us have done, hopefully read it sometime, see the pictures and interviews that we've had. And for the interviews, we have some really great people we talked to. One person is actually in the room, Leah. She had a great answer. Aaron asked her, do American students miss out on the experience of getting to know international students? And Leah said, yes, quote, yeah, I think so, but I also think we do miss out on getting to know them. I feel like they miss out because when you know somebody different, it's a chance to get a different perspective on something else. It could be a very enlightening experience. And I really enjoyed that quote because I never thought about talking to international students and getting that's a different way you can get study abroad experience, is talking to your international peers, your students. And I'm the only one who hasn't traveled abroad. I'll be going here in about a week and a half, and yeah, that'll be a great experience, but I think I missed out also my 4 years here at Simpson, not talking to my peers, not talking to the international students. So I really like that quote. Another person we talked to, Kate interviewed her. Her name was Brooke Avila. She was a Simpson alum that traveled to London in '99, and she said, I left for the trip very naive to the world and came back much more resourceful as a person. And Brooke now owns her own marketing business. It's called BA Innovations, and that's kind of how I feel right now. I feel very naive to the world, and I hope to come back as a resourceful person, hopefully. So yeah, just going with these guys to different interviews really sparked my interest in this whole project, and it really did enlighten me, and I really enjoyed it. And one thing I think this is really important for all of you to know, for Iowa to know, is because going into a field with lots of communication, you have to do just that. You have to communicate. Sounds pretty simple, but if you're faced with a different culture or somebody from a different culture, are you going to know how to communicate to that person effectively? Are you going to know, respectfulness? They talked about, are you going to know how to collaborate with these people? So these are all the key skills that you have that you gain from studying abroad. And I know one thing we talked about, you're not just traveling abroad, you're studying abroad. So it's not a vacation, it's you immersing yourself in a culture. And that's one thing that I learned, and I hope to take with me when I travel to Peru the day after graduation. Yeah. And so our title for this project is called Going Global, Taking Iowa to the World, Bringing the World to Iowa. So I really hope you guys will be able to read it and see the work that we've done.
What advice would you give to any prospective student on study abroad, as far as how do you find a way to step outside your comfort zone?
Well, okay, I think it's important to note that all of us have had study abroad experience, and Katie is going to have study abroad. Aaron studied abroad in London, I lived in Australia, and you've traveled abroad. So I think to answer these questions, we kind of bring a personal background to it also. So I know when I studied abroad, it was just, I find the type of personality that tends to study abroad, you're putting yourself out there anyway. And so it's kind of just taking that chance of going up to people and saying, hey, I'm new here, what is there to do around here? You kind of just have to force yourself to go outside of your comfort zone. Like, it's going to be awkward, but it pays off in the end.
I guess for me, I'm not necessarily that type. I'm very much stuck in my comfort zone a lot of the time, as you know, because you're my father. But for me, it's just a matter of readjusting to the fact that it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and you have to make the most of it. And so just thinking about the cost-benefit of it, you're going to get more out of stepping outside of your comfort zone than being stuck inside it all the time. So just take that plane trip to Dubai for free.
But tell your parents
Yeah.
when you go. Tell someone besides your professor.
That's probably good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And for me, my experience is a little bit different. My brother was stationed over in Germany at the time, so I got to travel over there with my family. But it's a lot like anything, just plan and kind of know what you're getting into financially, or know what you want to see while you're over there, and that will kind of help with things too.
Yeah, I might add, again, in addition to moderating, as I said, I led Aaron and Bonnie and Kate, and I don't know if there's anyone else from my London group here, but one of the things, I went over a few days before they did, so I could kind of get adjusted, and they all landed at 11:30 or noon on the day of their arrival. And first thing we did was we took them back to the university. And I think it's pretty fair to say, right, it's a bit overwhelming when you've been spending months getting ready, and those of you who are international students can probably attest that it's a bit overwhelming to actually be there all of a sudden. And so we went, and one of the things that we do, at least, is we try to keep the students running all day long, so that they don't collapse, so they don't feel sorry for themselves, so they don't get upset. And I just had them all together, and I said very simply, I hadn't said this to them at all I had purposely not said this to them, but I said, there's two very simple rules today, ladies and gentlemen, and it's patience and good humor, because things are going to go wrong for us today, okay? We're going to have problems buying, right? Those of us who were on our trip, remember we couldn't use our debit cards to buy tube passes. So then we had to all go in line and go get cash to buy tube passes with cash, which took quite a bit longer than we thought. And that can go south very quickly, especially when you're sleep deprived and you're a little homesick and you're a little hungry. So that's one of the things I think is that you know what, no matter how well prepared you are, there's going to be those moments where you go, and I don't want to put our international students on the spot, but maybe they can say, there's going to be moments when you say, why did I do this? Right? I mean, I know that there are, for the American students, why exactly did I do this? I can't think of it. So I think that's a key thing that you can do, is just, this too shall pass. So, and it'll be great in it. So.
When you went abroad, were you able to connect with the student over there?
I lived in a building where the floor was incorporated with not only American students, all the American students from our group were in the same building, but they were all on different floors, and they were mixed in with British students and Norwegian students, and I think ours had Poland, and I think I'm forgetting one as well. But I've made friends that I still talk to that are British students that are technically home students there, so as well as from Norwegian students. So if that answers your question.
And another one is, do you have any idea why some students here, the HS, don't want to connect with all international students?
I think, for me personally, I'm always afraid that I am either going to be offensive or not understand something, and it's just a matter of stepping outside the comfort zone at the same time, I think, as well, because I personally wouldn't necessarily be comfortable walking up to an international student and having a conversation, not because I don't want to talk to them, just because I don't know how to go about it. So I think it's a matter of both sides stepping out of their comfort zone and making those connections.
I live with an international student, Brooke Avila, in the back. And I feel like, no offense, Brona, but like I probably wouldn't have known you if I didn't live with you, because it's just, yeah, I think what Erin said is there's this thing where both sides have this disconnect, and so I'm so happy that I've lived with Brona and I've gotten that perspective, and I've had that experience of living with her, and my other roommates will probably say the same thing. So I think it is just both sides kind of stepping up, and maybe, I don't know, there needs to be more events or something that kind of connects the entire college.
And I think it's really good that Simpson does try to give international students roommates who aren't internationals, because that's a great way to make that connection. So even if they don't necessarily talk to anyone else, they still have at least their roommates. So.
In your interviews and discussions that you had with people about having had international experiences and how that related to their jobs, were you able to talk with any Simpson students, Simpson alums, who have had international experiences and how that played into their current job or their search?
So I didn't do that specifically for this article, but the internship that I work at now, my supervisor, boss, she has had international experience, and the other day I was just talking with her about how she just had the guts to take a job because she had learned independence from studying abroad. She was just kind of offered this job, and she didn't really know if she wanted to take it, but she just kind of went back to her international experience and what all she accomplished and that independence that she had gained, and said, you know what, if I did that, I can do this and tackle a new challenge. So, and I know for me personally too, my international experience has just helped me put myself out there, get internships, talk to new people. I think if you realize what skills you've picked up, then you can carry them through when you come back.
And I think with Simpson alum Brooke, didn't she say, because she decided to start her own business, and one of the reasons is because she had the confidence to do it, just do it, and she did it. So.
We actually have a Simpson alumna from 99 or 2000, Disti Carstensen Prophet, who is from Odebold, Iowa, came to Simpson partly because her boyfriend was playing football here, came to Simpson, did the 4 years at Simpson, and both she and her husband are now living and working in London. I had lunch with her one day, and then she actually allowed some of our students to job shadow with her for a couple days, and she's still, Odebold, Iowa girl, but she's living on the west side of London, working near Paddington Station, and she said, and I said, do you miss home? She said, yeah, I miss home, but this is home now. I mean, both of her children have British accents, and she said, we have no plans to live anywhere other than here at this time. So, and she did either the first or the second Simpson semester abroad in London, and so it was very easy. It was still quite a leap to do that and get the work permits and everything, but she says without that experience, she and her husband would have never even considered it. But she's doing very well in public relations and event planning for a firm in London now.
So this is a good thing. Should Simpson require every student to either study abroad or have some kind of international experience?
That is a good question.
There you go. We've talked about this. With the president in the International Studies Director.
I think we would agree, I don't know if I'm speaking entirely, I think so, that it's just becoming a necessary skill that you need. I mean, I feel like there is no way you can avoid it, even in podunk rural Iowa, that you can avoid internationalization, especially, you go to college to get a job, and in your job, you need these skills. You need to be aware of cultural respect and internationalization and communicating with others. And I know Ryan, when I talked to him, he just said, there's no way I could learn about this by just sitting in a classroom. You really need to go out there and do it, and even though it's costly, I just think it pays off in the end.
But another thing to kind of consider is that if you require study abroad to be part of the curriculum, then that may deter people who maybe not be as outgoing to go on study abroad, or they may just think that they aren't financially ready to commit to that. Unfortunately, we have kind of that stigma that, you got to invest into this. College itself is an investment, so can I really afford, or can I really stomach putting on a couple extra $1,000s to have this experience? So it's definitely, it's a thing that you need to consider. I, like my partners here, I think that it is a good opportunity, and I think that you should go for it, but it's not one that you should think about half-heartedly. You need to consider and crunch numbers, and there are scholarship opportunities. There's the Gilman Scholarship. You can use your financial aid packages. There's other scholarship opportunities out there. And it's like going to college, and going to college economically, you have to work for it, but in the end, that hard work is going to benefit you, and it's going to make you a better and well-rounded person.
And we'd be a little remiss not to add that in addition to those scholarships, Simpson is in a blessed state to have the Wall Scholarship Fund, which just kicked in this year and really makes it possible for students to do that. Can I ask a question? Among the U.S. citizen students in the room, how many of you do not have a passport? Do not have a passport. Do not have a passport. So, and she's a colleague. We're going to have to talk to her about that. So, one piece of advice, I see a lot of prospective students, and a lot of times they ask me for advice, and I said, one of the things I would really suggest you do, it's a really modest expense, is get a passport. Because that just makes a statement to yourself, I want to do this. I think there's a lot of people who want to do this and they're not sure how to start, and I think it would make life a lot easier in terms of choosing this, and kind of as our panelists have said, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. If you said, you know what, I've got a passport, it's good for 10 years, I'm going to go sometime, that's one thing I would say. So if you don't have a passport, treat yourself to a birthday gift or a Christmas gift and get yourself a passport this year. Because even if you don't do it when you're at Simpson, you're gonna do it. So.
Okay, we know that we can't, at least for now, require study abroad, right? Or even a May term. And you mentioned the fact that it's so difficult on campus for international students and the U.S. students or domestic students to communicate and work together and collaborate. As you were going through this whole process, have you come up with any ideas of what we can do on campus to help educate those students who have not, or maybe will not, have those international study experiences? And also to help welcome the international students in a better way and to work together.
I know one thing that Erin, you talked about earlier, how they have like the international students, they go in a group and they go places. Do they go to do they stay in Iowa or go out of Iowa?
I know that here they went to New Orleans and somewhere, I think it was Chicago.
Yeah, see, I had no idea that was kind of a deal that they did. I think that I would love to do that. I mean, if I had the chance, I think that is the perfect opportunity for if American students were able to hop on a bus. I mean, that right there. I know, like, when you go on sports trips or speech and debate trips, like, you're with those people. You make a bond in that 5-hour or even 2-hour drive. You know, we make a bond going over to Iowa City. I think if I hopped on a bus with Leah and, the other international students, I would make a bond right there for however many hours you're on there. I think that's a perfect idea.
I think that is a really good way, and just, I think with Grinnell, what Grinnell has done with the small groups, I think that would be a great way. And I mean, you might not get every domestic student on campus to want to be a part of that, but there are going to be students that would want to be a part of that, and those are even better students to have as a part of that because they already are willing to have an experience. They just might not have the guts to open that door by themselves. So having some sort of program like that, or with the Code Diplomats, just someone who willingly volunteers to, hey, I want to meet these people, I know how important they are, and can be, I think is a great way to do
last fall. I was in London with Erin. And it was a great experience, but I think a lot of students who come in, the idea of going abroad for a semester is very overwhelming. You're missing, you think of what you're gonna miss here, and you not only think of that, but you think of how do I function in a foreign country? And for me, it just worked out that I went to an English-speaking country, but still, it's not the same English. What do students coming in, how can schools like Simpson break it down and make it a more real concept for students to decide that I can function in London and I can live and I can work and I can eat and not get lost?
Simpson does before you study abroad, you have to take a class before that. But I guess in my mind, I think the midterm is a really good, that's just a small step, if you just want to have that study abroad experience, but you can't imagine leaving for a semester. Simpson and other schools, they may have a J term or a May term. It gives you that experience, and it kind of gives you a taste of it. I know my sister is like a homebody. She never wants to leave Iowa, but she went to Argentina for 3 weeks during a May term and got the taste for travel, and that kind of just whet her palate for what else is out there. So I think Simpson does a good job of kind of offering alternatives. I think, and this is kind of
random, but I think something that a way to incorporate that, especially for the freshmen, is to kind of have, because they're called SC classes now, they used to be LAS classes, different system. Anyways, I think that would be a really good way to kind of have someone come in and talk about study abroad potentially to these groups of freshman classes. I know I'm involved in Sarah, and we will sometimes get together with the teachers and come into these SC classes and teach them about what Sarah stands for Sexual Assault Response Advocates, in case you guys don't know. So Sarah would have kind of a 15-minute, here's what this is about, here's why this is important. So I think it would be great to do that for study abroad as well, and maybe have a couple either alumni or students who would be willing to go in and talk to those freshmen and say, hey, I studied abroad for a semester, I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. Here, it wasn't necessarily always awesome, but it was awesome overall, and here's why you should do it, even though it's expensive. So that could be a great way to incorporate that.
Erin, I know you did a blog when you were overseas. Was that something that the school or your class had asked you to do, or was that something that you just did on your own? And was that something that you considered helpful? Would you suggest it to others, or did it become too much, or just talk about it for a minute?
I think one thing that was kind of different about our London trip is a lot of the people on it happened to be people from the journalism area. So Kate, Mariah, I know, there was quite a fair amount of part, probably because Brian was leading the trip and he's our department head, but that was something that I had decided to do, just because I know for me, a lot of the times when I look back on experiences, I tend to forget details and little facts, just random things. And so the reason why I did the blog was because I wanted to remember as much as I could. And so I figured just writing it down in just kind of a stream of consciousness, that would be a great way to have something to look back on and remember it. And we did some class assignments that were kind of journals like that through one of Brian's classes, but my online blog was for me.
And I know DMAC, they had the magazine. I don't know, was it a journalism thing?
Yeah, it's a journalism
okay.
application.
So at DMAC, they had a magazine that they all put together, the students did, and it was really neat because it shows in there, the fashion, it shows places you should go to, things to avoid. It was pretty cool. I really like that idea. If Simpson ever decided to do a journalism abroad, to put in a little magazine together, that's pretty cool.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that just about wraps up the time. First of all, I want to thank the panelists. They have been great to work with, not just this term, but all the way through. In some cases, they're 4 years with us. They're going to do quite good work. They're going to make a lot of noise in this business. One of the reasons we did this is one of the things that we really try to drive home in our coursework in journalism is that journalism is not a lecture. It's not just posting a story and hoping somebody reads, but it's really something to actively engage people in conversation. And that's one of the reasons we did this day. And it's really, as I've taught it at least, the future of journalism. So would you please give them a round of applause?